beautiful afternoon. Oh, how was that for a tackle? Lupita, no, not yet. The cubs aren't big enough to hunt with their parents, but they do make them old enough to move with their parents while the lionesses are hunting. But they're not skilled enough or big enough to successfully hunt big animals yet. What that means is that they so often mess up the lioness's hunts because they don't know how to be quiet, they don't know how to stalk properly, and they ruin it all. And the animals see them, oh, look at that, running with the stick. But there's another one on its way after it. So absolutely, the lionesses will take them hunting, but they are big enough to hunt small things. But that's more that they're practicing. It's their instinct telling them to practice and to hunt and to stalk than for food. And all of this play is also very, very important because it's building up their skills and their coordination as well. So they're practicing, they're getting big and strong for the days when they are big enough to be able to hunt for themselves. My tool, a male lion will not attack the cubs if he thinks that those cubs belong to him or one of his coalition members. In other words, part of his gang. And that's because they mate with the females, therefore they know which females they mate with, and they instinctively sense when a cub is probably theirs. But if a male comes into a new territory where he knows that the cubs do not belong to him or the rest of his coalition, then he will kill them. And he will kill them, although it sounds very cruel. Remember that this is nature. It doesn't work by our standards or morality. But he will kill those cubs because it will bring the females back into heat, and it means that he can mate with them. Okay, guys, we need to put our rain covers on as the rain sneaks closer. I think that Brent would already have done that, so let's fly across to him and have a look at that male lion.
Well, we're not looking at a male lion. We're watching the cubs who are watching a herd of topi and buffalo behind. They seem very interested. They're a bit too small to go off hunting by themselves just yet. But you can see the rain getting closer and closer. We haven't got any drops here yet, but I think it is coming. And you can hear the thunder and lightning. Well, you can't hear lightning, you can only hear thunder. But there is lightning as well. So I'm just going to move the car a little bit. Geordie is wondering, why is the male lion by himself? Well, he's not entirely by himself, Geordie. The cubs are just over there, and I'm sure there's a female there as well. And I just want to see if we could see the other lionesses. There's two lionesses. No, we can't see them from here. But let's just look at the big male lion. I just want to get my back facing to the rain, in case I have to drop the rain covers very quickly. There we go. Oh, we're lucky. There was another storm coming in from the south, but that's gone. So we thought for a while we were going to get stuck between two storms. But luckily, it looks like we only have to deal with one. Ludia wants to know, why do lions sleep with their mouths open? They don't always sleep with their mouths open. Just the same reason, I suppose. Some people will sleep with their mouths open. And you can have a good look at his paws there. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? You can see that big paw. Now, a lion has retractable claws, so he's able to pull his claws back in and out when he needs them. So at the moment, while he's resting, his claws will be inside, retracted in, but he will be able to extend them if he ever needs them in a fight or to catch something. Santi and Miss Lefemme's class would like to know, how fast can a lion run? A lion's top speed is around 21 meters per second, but they can't keep it up for very long. So they normally only run for 40 meters at the most. They can jog for long distances if they're being chased by other lions, but normally they will use bursts of speed rather than running for a long time. But 21 meters per second is a lion's top speed. Yasel is wondering, do male lions hunt more than the females? Not necessarily. The females will normally do quite a bit more hunting, or the males will hunt for themselves. It's a bit of a myth that the lionesses do all the hunting, because the male lions do, when they're patrolling territory, spend a lot of time away from the females, so they do have to get dinner for themselves. I'm hoping he is going to wake up at some point. Lillian would like to know, can I hear him snoring? No, I have heard lions snore, but this particular male, he's a quiet sleeper. Oof. Can listen to that thunder. I do like the sound of thunder. Rain is a very important part of the African ecosystem. Without the good rains, we wouldn't have all the animals, or we wouldn't have all the grass. Without the grass, we don't have all the zebra and wildebeest and buffalo and impala. And without the zebra, buffalo, wildebeest and impala, we don't have any lions, leopards, wild dog or cheetah. Now, it seems like it's a lion drive this afternoon, so we're going to go back to Jamie, who's got the Angama pride.
We do indeed have the Angama pride, and in fact not just the Angama pride, but some rain has arrived as well. So we're tucked up in our tent, sort of. We've got one side of our canvas covers down, so that we can protect ourselves, and the other side open so that we can show you these lovely lions. There's something else lovely that we'd love to show you as well, and that is the fact that out here in Africa, I think we have the best sunsets. So over there, even though it's cloudy, the clouds have parted just enough to create this really beautiful picture. The mountains in the background, the trees, the rumbling thunder, it all creates a stunning image. So this place is really, really beautiful. And we're very lucky to live here with all these wild animals as well. So, back to our lions. I was hoping that this weather might stir them and they might decide to get up, but the lionesses just don't seem to have that on their mind at all. In fact, they could not be more asleep if they tried. But that makes sense, because lions do most of their moving about in the evening and early in the morning. So they're more active, generally speaking, at night than they are during the day. I just want to check very quickly. I'm not sure if you are asking questions, but I think I'm not hearing them. So I just wanted to check from Alice if she is able to talk to me. There we go. Okay, I can hear Alice, and she's telling me that Steve in South Africa has found some other exciting things for you. It's not all about lions out here. He's found some antelope.
And welcome back. We are at Chitwa Dam, and in front of us what we can see is a small herd of Impala. There you can see two small little babies which we would call juveniles, as I mentioned before. Those were born just recently, last few days to a week. Very, very, very new born antelope. The one in your screen walking away would be probably a sub-adult female, but there you can see the babies walking across the road. If you look just to the left there are two young male Impala of different ages. You can see they're males because they have horns, the one on the left being probably about 2 years of age, and the one on the right who's now walking away, much smaller horns, who's born last year and about this time. Okay, I don't know if you can see that guy on the left of the screen. He's doing something very funny with his mouth. The male Impala had actually urinated on the ground, and he has gone and tasted the urine with his mouth. Can you believe that? He's actually gone and tasted it, stuck his nose in it, and then lifted his lip, and that is what we call the Jacobson organ. And in the top of the mouth is actually called the phlegm response, and it's something that a lot of animals do to test the reproductive status or quite a lot of other things about an animal. They actually test it with that organ, and it sends all sorts of stimuli, all sorts of messages to the brain telling that animal what's going on with that animal that's urine it just tasted. Very pretty antelope. Look at those beautiful horns, beautiful ears. An interesting question from Susan about, are impalas related to deer? No, antelope are antelope and deer are deer. I know that's a very simple explanation, but antelope grow what we call horns that grow throughout their lives, and deer are not very similar to that in the way that they will grow antlers, and those will only grow in the breeding season and then will fall off again. We don't have any deer in southern Africa that I know of. Maybe some exotic species around, but they're not indigenous to Africa. I hope that answers that question. But you can see the Impala have moved into the shade. As you spoke of before, it is quite hot, and for animals to survive out here, they need to sit in the shade. They need shade for obviously protecting themselves. We wear hats, and we have houses, and we have all sorts of things to keep us from the elements. The Impala use the environment. Look at that little baby. He's busy licking himself. What looks like licking actually is a very important part of the behavior of these animals. He's actually grooming himself, or she. It's very hard to tell when they're that age, but they use their teeth. The Impala are born with a very loose tooth on the lower jaw, which they use for combing through the fur, and I doubt that youngster's actually caught any ticks at the moment, but Impala need to learn that trick from an early age for eliminating ticks from the fur, which obviously will decrease their health. If you have a lot of ticks on you, a lot of ticks sucking your blood, your energy and your strength actually disappears. And if they're not able to groom themselves, they will not survive out here. There you can see the bigger one, a 1-year-old, doing the same thing. And there we can see the two males busy sparring. Very important element of the Impala behavior from a young age, just like we do. Don't know if any of you are boxers or fighters out there. You don't just walk into the ring against Mike Tyson. You have to practice. And so from day one, these young animals, even when the babies within a month or two of being born, will start trying to spar with each other. So Impala species that we have here and all through southern Africa are very, very important food source. Very, very important food source. We're known as a buffer species, very important for the large animals that we have, and I believe Brent has got something large and furry that enjoys eating something small and tasty. Let's cut to Brett.
Well, as you can see, the male lion hasn't moved a muscle just yet. Now, of course, I'm hoping that he will. The cubs are behind us, but while he's snoozing like that, I think we might go look for the ladies. They're not too far away. And our schools have left us, but of course we're still coming to you live from the Masai Mara and from the Greater Kruger at the same time. Isn't that exciting? If you have any questions, hashtag Safari Live. Now, it looks like we're getting quite lucky. The rain is not going to hit us. It stayed up against the escarpment. Jamie might get a little bit wet. She's a bit closer to the escarpment, but Batman and I think we're going to manage to stay high and dry. Okay, let's go have a look at the ladies. Maybe they're going to be more mobile than this boy who hasn't moved at all since we've been here. So the cubs are up there. There's probably another lioness with the cubs there. No, there's not. I see all lionesses here. There's 3 lionesses up ahead. So the cubs have been left in a protected area there. And these girls are very close to an elephant. Who's feeding inside the little lugger. Joe is wondering, do lions and elephants ever get along? No, lions and elephants do not get along. Elephants will chase lions at any given opportunity, and if there is a baby or an elephant that's sick or weakly, lions will try eat it. They are not friends. But an elephant bull like that knows how big he is, how powerful he is, so lions pose very little threat to him. Now, there's a tiny little baby elephant off to the right that the lions, if it got separated from the rest of the herd, would definitely, possibly try and have a go at. Little one, hello, little one. Very beautiful. It is quite serene to just watch a nice herd of elephants. Mooty is asking, can I explain the myth about dyeing elephant tusks for their protection? I think I know what you're talking about, so I'm not going to say any names or anything like that, but there was a group who started injecting dye into rhino horns for their protection. It was a pink dye with insecticide, and they claimed they were going to try do it on elephants as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in either circumstances. The dye stays in a very small area. That rhino horn's very compact. Oh, look! Sorry, got sidetracked. And look over there at the elephants and the lions together. You can see the one's a little bit to the left, how close they are. There we go. And those at least might come out of the lugger, and if they do, they might chase the lions, but at the moment they're far more concerned with feeding than chasing any big cats away. As I said, they're young bulls, so there's no threat posed by those lions. So that's that. So it was a good idea, but unfortunately it doesn't have any practical applications. And with a rhino horn, which is quite coarse hair, there was maybe a chance they were going to be able to get that dye through, but it doesn't actually. It only stays around the dye site. And with elephant tusks, it'll be nearly impossible. There's no gap between the graining in the elephant tusk. So unfortunately, it is a good idea if you were able to put an insecticide that would make people sick inside a rhino horn or elephant tusks, but unfortunately you can't, and it doesn't work. But while we sit here and wait for either the lions to get up or the elephants to hang on a little bit to the right there before we go back to South Africa, that young elephant might chase the lions just because it can.
People sometimes buy elephant tusks. Look at that. That's so cool. And welcome back, folks. We are now sitting at Chitwa Dam in the water, by the water should I say, and I don't know about you, where you're sitting at the moment in the cool office or in your house, nice and cool, but we're sitting in the heat of the day out here in the savannah, very, very warm. I don't know where I'd like to be, but in the water there with the hippos, sounds like a good place to be. Large animal like that spends most of its time in the water. The water obviously keeps it cool, while at the same time supports its body weight, so it doesn't have to expend much energy to sit there in the water. There we have an individual, what looks like a bull hippo, excuse me. Large animal, most of his body obviously underneath the water, and he's keeping himself nice and cool, just exposing a little bit of his back and his head. Now he's not floating, he's actually probably sitting there on the bottom, maybe on his feet or his legs tucked up underneath him, completely at ease, completely at rest in the coolness of that beautiful stream. He's even tucked his nose under the water. Some of you at home can probably hold your breath a couple of minutes. Hippos can hold their breath up to about 6. So if you could try that at home, I wouldn't suggest it because you might not recover. The hippos are well adapted to this amphibian lifestyle, and if you're not sure what that means, amphibian means to be in the water and on land. The hippo...
Okay, guys, as the young elephant just started chasing the lions, I think it might be over now. I'm just going to hang around for a second. You see the lions up. That young elephant might chase them again. So even a young elephant like that, who's probably around 9 or 10 years old, is still within the lion's grasp. But the fact that there's so many other elephants around, that if it started to give distress calls, the other elephants would come to its rescue. So the lions are not even attempting. But it looks like there's a bit of calm now. Just watch for a little bit longer to see if that young Ellie decides that the lions might need another good chasing. And I think quite often with an elephant of that age, it's just for a bit of fun. And you can see there's another bull, but that's on the other side of a very deep little river system. And there are elephants in the river system feeding. You can just see their backs there. Come on, little one. Let's go chase some lions. No, going to go down into the river. Olivia is wondering how far away are those lions from the elephant? Not very far at all, probably 10 or 15 meters. Lions have a much faster burst of speed, so they would be able to escape. And they're not really trying to hunt that little elephant or any elephant there. They're just waiting for it to get cooler and darker, and then they'll probably head off on the hunt. Jules says, come on, chase them for fun. Jules, I agree. It is always fun watching lions get chased by elephants. And so they've now moved into that little river system, or laga. And the lions have a bit of respite from the elephant attention. It is just a beautiful scene here this afternoon in the Masai Mara. Absolutely gorgeous visuals. are watching them disappear. And I've just kept checking over my shoulder to see if that big male has decided to wake up. He has not. He is also still snoozing away. Lions are a little bit more awake after their encounter with the elephants. But not too much. So I think it's going to be a while still. So we're going to start moving. I just want to show you a really beautiful view. Of some elephants in the sunset. The sun is about to burst down from out of the clouds above the Olololo escarpment. And there's another herd of elephants there feeding in the golden, glorious light. Isn't that beautiful? Absolutely stunning. Doesn't get much better than that, I tell you. Now we're going to start heading up towards the Olololo escarpment, see what other wonders await. While we do that, let's go across to Noel, who's got some naughty little monkeys.
We have some very adorable vervet monkeys busy picking up what looks like possibly insects off the ground. Earlier, one ran off and then came back, and we weren't sure if it had an egg or if it was a mushroom, and then we took a closer look and it had a mushroom in its mouth. Got the adult moving to the back there, and then some juveniles just in front. So vervet monkeys are very interesting. They're really good indicators of whether or not a predator's around. They do very well at, specifically with leopard, because when a leopard can, it will definitely catch and eat a vervet monkey. And they natter. They climb right to the top of trees and natter away. Right now, they're very calm, as you can see, and just feeding away. So I don't think they're aware of any predators. We also haven't seen anything around. Very distinctive sort of light gray fur and that very dark face. The males get a rather large blue colored testicle at the back, especially the alphas. That helped to note them. The adult that walked off earlier was a female. You could see she's been nursing at some point. And then these little ones here, when they're not feeding, are quite cheeky and like to wrestle and play and run around with each other. Joy, you're perfectly correct there. They are super cheeky. Vim and I were just chatting now about how they like to come into our kitchen when they think we're not looking and investigate all of our people food. What's that one found? Interesting. Let me just get my binos out. I think my angle's a little bit off. Looks almost like he's eating something off the backside of the bark there, the underside of the bark. Maybe some ants or possibly some termites. That's what I would guess from what I can see. I'm always amazed at their intelligence. I'm always just amazed at sort of apes in general with their intelligence. We don't get chimpanzees here, but it's also on my bucket list of things to see is chimpanzees and the tools that they use, sort of the grass and the sticks that they'll put down termite mounds to feed. And even these vervets here, they're not done by any stretch of the imagination. Also very good indicators with crowned eagles, which occur a little bit farther north from us. Lucy, you're curious about what a vervet's favorite food is. Lucy, for a vervet, they like fruits, and they like a little bit of vegetation, and they like insects. And so I think it just depends for them what's most readily available at that point. We do get trees that fruit throughout much of our summer season, and into our spring. That's definitely a mushroom that it's eating there. Did you see it pull it up? So some funguses as well. Now, what's interesting is that if I were to go and try and eat that mushroom, I don't think my stomach would be very happy. But for that Vervet monkey, he's not going to have any problems. There's a little tiny baby under that Vervet that Liam's just focusing in on there, clinging onto the mum's belly. I actually think it was very brief, but it looked like it was trying to nurse. And then from the way that she's sitting now, through the trees, it looks like she's cupping towards her breasts and nursing there. So they have pectoral mammae like us, which is breasts, as opposed to something like a Nyala that has an udder. Ooh, Steve has a very special surprise for you, so please let's go on over to him. He's a dear friend and on his interview drive, and I know he's super excited to show you what he has.
Welcome back, and we're here with Tingana. You can see him crouched down there in the grass. There are some Nyala just ahead of him here. They haven't spotted him. They're making alarm calls, but they have no idea where he is. So let's just watch very closely. Apparently he's a very good hunter, and the Nyala have no idea his position. This is very exciting, folks, to see something like this on live TV. The leopard is only meters away from a small group of Nyala, and he's dead still. Look at the ears, complete focus. He's moving his feet to get the best position. Low he goes. Nyala just have to pick the right direction. The wind is swirling, it's picking up. Makes it very confusing for an animal to detect the presence of the predator, where he is when it's swirling. It's very hard. And they need their sense of smell. Not only the sense of smell, but the sound. The wind is making the grass move and the leaves twitch. And these animals, as camouflaged as they are, rely heavily on their hearing to discover the presence of a predator. And when the wind is moving, it makes everybody very uneasy. Looks like the Nyala are a little... Did you hear that bark? That whoa! I'm not very good with my Nyala bark today. I think my mouth's a bit dry in this heat. But I don't know if you heard that boom. Very similar to a deep bark, like the kudu and the bushbuck are related. Unfortunately, it looks like the Nyala have moved off just a little bit, but they still have no idea where this male leopard is. That was jaw in the jaw stuff, drop the jaw stuff. That was fantastic. So we got a call from one of the guys while we were sitting at the dam having a look at the hippo. We were really enjoying the sight of the hippo there. We were in the shade. But now we've come across here, we've managed to got a standby, and we came right in as the action was unfolding. Fantastic stuff. We have got a second leopard joining. There is a second leopard coming in from the left here. I don't think that he has any idea of the first leopard. I'm not sure what the name is, but there's something's going to happen, guys. This is Hosana, I believe. And something is about to go down, folks. Watch very closely. They've now both got wind of each other, but there should be some submissive behavior from the one on the left. If you could hear it, I don't know if you can hear it, there's some growling going on. Definitely the younger of the two leopards is approaching, and he is behaving in not being aggressive. Let's see. The bigger of the two leopards, the one in the back, is definitely showing signs of aggression. Body language, facial expressions. The jaw is open, he's growling. There's a deep rumble coming from his tummy. This is fantastic stuff. Hosana now doesn't seem too perturbed. He's a young leopard. I believe he's only 21 months. I believe that this is the son and the other is the dad. So there seems to be some tolerance. Fantastic to see. Just like me, the mouth is dry, need a little bit of water. There's a very hot day here in the Sabi sands. That is fantastic visual. You see how the leopard laps the water up, nice and muddy, murky water. But you've got to drink. We don't all have water on tap. Animals have to make use of what they can, and these little pans are very, very important for the survival of most of the antelope and animals that we see. Leopards can get a lot of the moisture that they attain from the blood that they get from the antelope that they eat. Impala, for an example, there's a lot of moisture in the blood, and this is a thirsty animal. He was around this morning, and we were hoping to come out this afternoon and find him. So we did make an effort to come into this area, but I wasn't expecting to see what we're seeing right now. This is absolutely fantastic stuff. The larger of the two leopards is completely relaxed now. There's no behavior. He is just sitting there, but definitely far bigger than his son. Panting, the heat, but the beautiful coloration of that animal, almost impossible to see. Can you go again with that question, please? Very, very thirsty. It's possible that he hasn't drunk since this morning. I know he was running around away from the pan earlier on after he was left this morning, and it's possible it's been a few hours in the heat that he's just been waiting to avoid obviously walking through the heat of the day. It's a big effort for a cat to walk in the heat, so they avoid it as much as they can, but when the need finally arises, they have to come and drink. Hopefully he leaves some for the rest of us. You hear the sounds of a fork-tailed drongo there. He's busy bombing the leopard, also known as the honey badger of the sky. The fork-tailed drongo, he doesn't heed for anybody. He will chase the biggest and scariest of them all, and often a very important alarm call in the bush. You hear that alarm call. It's not a typical whistling or communicative call. It's a typical loud rasping shout, basically indicating to the leopard that it's been seen. And quite often alarm call is enough to force these animals to move away from whatever it is they might be doing. If you see the colors on them, they are animals of stealth and stalking, and once they have been detected, they generally move away from the area or pretend to not have been seen at all. In this case, the male is now lying down. I didn't get the name there. I think Fubi, Susie, terribly sorry. I'm not getting the best signal here. Fluzy with an S. How long? Sorry, I'm not quite getting the name. Fluvi. How long do leopards live in the wild? A male leopard probably can live a little bit less than a female, but between, I would say, 14 and 15 years would be the average a leopard could live. Females maybe a little bit longer, males a little bit less, maybe up to 10 years, all dependent on their strength, on their ability to survive. Most leopards, oh, there he's yawning, fantastic. Most leopards are very, very formidable and very, very adapted animals to survive, but if they get injured or die of natural causes through injury, obviously they live a lot shorter periods. But on average, I'd say a male 10 to 12, females a little bit longer, 14 to 15 years in the wild. Look at that posturing. That is all body language. All body language. Would you want to mess with that? Look at those teeth, the size of the throat. It's no mistaking a male leopard for a female leopard by the size of the head, by the size of the jowls. And I don't know if you can quite pick up on that sound, if it's coming through there, but he is just giving light grunts, and he's basically indicating dominance. He's not looking at the other leopard though. Lynn, how do leopards tell friend from foe? It's very difficult to say. Most of the communication in the bush is done through smell. But lions, leopards, they also have a visual recognition of each other. I've seen lions particularly walking towards each other and behaving in a very aggressive manner to the one that it's approaching, or the one that's being approached, responding very aggressively, and then suddenly something triggers and that whole behavior changes, and it goes from aggression and posturing to affection and love. And in leopards, they are solitary animals. Males are dominant and they have territories. They can see another male by his size, by his posturing, and if they encounter each other on territorial boundaries, or if the big male encounters another male in his boundary, there will be serious aggression that will be displayed. Obviously, females are far smaller, and that big male there could tell this was a much smaller leopard. So just by posturing, just by displaying and making a noise, the reaction of the other leopard will indicate a lot, will indicate aggression, will indicate, are you a foe, are you a friend? And obviously Hosana, he behaved in a very childlike manner, almost oblivious to the fact that there's a larger leopard sitting in the grass, when any other leopard, female or male, of a breeding size, would react in a different manner, would posture back, would obviously become more submissive. He didn't show too much submissive behavior when he walked up, but obviously sensing it's his dad hanging out in the same area, and obviously there's a smell. He's probably smelt him around for the last couple of hours, and the wind has been swirling, so yes, there's definitely a smell communication there that they would have connected on. But I don't know, I'm not a leopard, so these are all things that we can read about and experience, but how do they really experience it? How do they really pick up on those cues? We have a look at the guy on the left again. Hosana, he's beautiful there, sitting in the open. Look at that light. It's getting a little bit later in the afternoon now, and the temperature's definitely dropped from before. He's now got a belly full of water. He's feeling a lot cooler. He's still panting. The animal has its mouth quite wide open, and wind coming in over that, very wet. There we go. Nice big yawn and a scratch. Now, if that's not relaxed, I don't know. Up he gets. Maybe it's still a little bit too hot to be sitting in the sun. But with the mouth open, as I said before, wind blowing in over the moist mouth cools them, which is quite an important trait for these animals. They don't sweat like we do, so they have to pant. If any of you have ever had a dog at home and you've taken it for a walk or a run, it has to pant, and this big long tongue hangs out the side of the mouth and lolls from left to right, and the wind blowing over that is its method of cooling down. Both of these animals are panting quite heavily, and I would say it's primarily because the wind picked up that they started becoming more active. As I said in the start of this little leopard encounter, the wind plays an important part in the deception, because it masks the approach of the leopard. It confuses the animal. They can't hear. The wind swirls the smell around. Kudu, Nyala specifically, they have really big ears for hearing. They can hear the slightest movement in the grass. Even the leopards are very, very stealthy. The slightest movement can give them away. When the wind is swirling like that, often you'll see cats. I've seen them lying flat, even on a hot day. The wind picks up, and suddenly the animals get up and they start hunting. And often they move in the direction of the wind or across the wind, and that helps them to pick up the scent of prey that might be upwind from them. So he looks like he's had a long day. I didn't do it. A question, is it normal for Hosana to be social with other leopards? He's still a young cat, so he's still learning the ropes. He needs to learn the boundaries of how to behave with other leopards. They do, as they get older, become completely solitary, apart from when they are mating, and they need to understand the ins and outs of how to greet, how to approach, how to back down, how to just be around other leopards. He is going to be a big boy one day. He needs to know how it works, and learning from his dad. This is not something I've seen before, a young male leopard hanging out with an adult male leopard. It's not something I've seen before, but the Sabi Sands is a wonderful place for leopard viewing, and I think through his interaction with this male, he's learning how far he can go. And the large of the two, sorry I forget the name, I'll get these names down at some point, he behaved in a way, and these lines are drawn in the sand. When we when we have kids, our kids learn from our behavior as adults what they can and can't do, and if we don't discipline them or we don't react in a certain way, they'll cross that boundary. And slowly but surely over time, we as adults learn how to behave in society, and leopards have to do the same. When they are with their mothers, they are very social with their mothers. 2, 3, 4 leopards could be. They learn how to play, they learn how to socialize, they learn how to fight and stalk. The mother also teaches them through her growls and her aggressive behavior when it is acceptable to behave in a certain way and when it isn't. And just by her body language, they can learn if there's danger. By her body language, they can learn if they must move away. By their body language, they learn if there's something to hunt. So this is something that is learned. There's a lot of instinct involved, but there's also a lot of learning. And the longer they learn, the more successful they become. So we are going to leave these leopards here. They are a wonderful sighting. We're enjoying them sitting here in the cool of the shade. I'm going to link you back to Jamie. She's got some giraffes. Okay, and enjoy.
We do indeed have some giraffe and a really beautiful view as they wander their way across the road. We just had to show you very quickly, we are racing to the gate and we don't have much time at all. We're also stopped at an angle kind of like that. No, that's an exaggeration. We're stopped at an angle. We're stopped at a steep angle, so it's a tricky one, but we did just want to say a farewell from the Mara team looking at the giraffe. So a lovely, lovely scene. Amazing how sure-footed they are on this rocky road. It always amazes me. I see them every single evening when we come across in this direction. Sorry, I'm just making sure my foot is really solidly on the brake before we go backwards. Right, I'm going to try and pull off again up a slightly rocky, steep hill and send you back across to Steve, who has had the best luck for somebody who's here on an interview.
Just moving back, folks. You're back with us with the leopards. We're just making space for one of these vehicles to exit. So just forgive me for a moment while I just reposition the car, and then we're going to try and get into a better position so we can just get a little bit more up close and personal with the spotted cats. Yeah, man. Just moving in. Look at them. The wind is nice and cool now. Leopards are facing in the other direction, not looking at each other. See if we can get... How's that for you? Is that a little bit better?
That's great, thank you.
Okay, it's quite awesome to see the size difference. I was watching this morning with Hosana. His comments is he's quite a stocky, tall leopard, or stocky leopard for his age, but he's not a big leopard yet. And then when you compare him to his dad, you can just see the difference. Just see the difference. Dad is a big boy, really big cat, and this is what they do most of the day. Very, very hard life. A diet of protein. Not much work required with regards to tax and payment of bills. They drink water, they sleep, and they hunt. That is quite a nice life. Can still see the neck moving there. Very easy to identify the difference between a female and male by the size of that neck. Joy, that's a very interesting question. Would Hosana try to hunt next to Tingana? And I don't think, personally, I've never seen anything like that, hunting together. They are competitive. Definitely the bigger of the two would outcompete the smaller of the two. And if Hosana made a kill, Tingana would definitely steal it from him. There's no love lost when it comes to food, and when it comes to sociality and leopards, I've never seen male leopards feeding together. I've never heard of them hunting together. There might be cases recorded in the Sabi sands, but nothing I've ever heard of or read about. So it might be something to ask James or Steph about, but I don't think it would happen. There might be some action, and they might do something, but it would not be as a team. It would be as a solo effort, maybe a piracy. If one took it, the other one would steal it, but definitely the bigger of the two would outcompete the smaller. You hear the sounds of the crested francolin in the distance.
So when you guys split up after they've become bored with each other now, like I said,
We spoke about them earlier in the elephant dung. Very important for scratching in and around the area and dispersing seeds. A question from James about where I've guided before. I started my guiding career with Singita in the Kruger National Park. That was then followed by a stint with wilderness safaris, with a fair bit of studying in between. Nature conservation studies. So yes, Singita Kruger National Park, with a small stint with Singita in the Sabi sands, but not a very extensive period in the Sabi sands itself. So this is my third time back here, and wilderness safaris up in the Porphyry section, Makuleki in the northern Kruger. Probably the most amazing place in the world when it comes to birding, comes to wetlands, when it comes to elephant encounters and buffalo. Definitely, if you've never been to the northern part of the Kruger, it's a must-see. Both leopards are very alert. Their heads are up. The wind has died down, but it has definitely got a little bit cooler. They're both looking off in the northerly direction, but there doesn't seem to be anything that I can see in that direction. I don't know if you can see anything there, Seb.
no, not yet.
Looking at the leopard's ears, though, what's interesting when you look at intention, and what I always would say to the students I've trained is that if you understand animal behavior and if you understand ecology and tracking, you can get away with being a decent guide. Because animals, they will show you what they're doing. Their intentions tell you what's happening. Look at his ears are moving left and right. There's no direction. They're not set in one particular direction. So he's scanning the bush like a satellite, looking for sounds, looking for stimuli, looking for information. And while he's doing that, he's just sitting. I don't know if any of you have got a cat at home. They'll sit on the bed and they'll be fast asleep and the ears will twitch left and right and something will happen. And there's a beautiful yawn. Often after a leopard yawns, they tend to want to move. But I think it might be still a little bit early in the day for them to do that. Definitely a great first drive for me. Couldn't have planned this better for myself. 2 male leopards. This for me is a first. Absolute first. Unique. So they are both relaxed, both very, very relaxed in this afternoon sunshine, and the wind is slowly starting to pick up again. But as you can see with Hosana there, nothing's going on. He's just being. He's just sitting, his tail in the sand, and an easy way to identify male leopard, if you just go up a little bit there, by the gentles. Okay, when a leopard is not very big, if you're not too sure about the sex or by the size, looking behind the tail, under the tail, is often a good sign for the sex. Look at the spots, the beautiful rosettes, beautiful camouflage for cryptically making him disappear into the vegetation. You see what I mean about the intention. Suddenly the ears and the eyes perk up like your cat will do at home, staring off into the distance to that inaudible sound or stimuli that you did not pick up on. Dogs do the same thing. The wind is coming in his face, is in his direction, but there's nothing there that we can see. Maybe he's wondering what his dad's going to do next. Kathy, a question: are there a lot of leopards in the Northern Kruger? There are a fair amount of leopards up there, but the vehicle movement in the Northern Kruger is very, very small. There's only 2 lodges there, and the traversing rights, or the road network, is very, very small, and not many vehicles are out actively pursuing or actively habituating leopards. So to me, it's a very wild area where if you do find a leopard, it's generally quite skittish, it generally moves off, and that is a fantastic stretch. Any of you yoga lovers out there, that is called the cat stretch, or the downward facing dog, done by the cat himself. And he's moving closer to his dad. So let's just watch this for a moment. You'll see that the dad is aware he's coming. His ears have just flicked back slightly. What are the intentions here? This is completely new to me. A young male of 21 months approaching an adult. I don't know if I would be doing it. Let's see if there's any behavior change here. There we go. Look at that. There was a complete grimace, the ears are flat, and now there is a submissive behavior happening from the youngster a little bit to the right. If you can pan out a bit there, I don't know if you saw that. So the adult growled, flattened his ears, opened the mouth, and in response the youngster sat down, made a little meow of a cat call, mimicking the facial expressions of the dad, but not aggressively. Even though the face looks aggressive, the little meow that came out was very soft and playful. Now this is fantastic, seeing 2 male leopards facing off to each other, and the youngster not too bothered, picking up scent in the air, sniffing at a stick. Just complete displacement behavior, showing no signs of being worried or being aggressive, and that is basically animal behavior. If someone is being aggressive towards you and you behave aggressively, the response will be aggression. But if you react passively or completely aloof to aggressive behavior, often that completely breaks down the aggression, because that's how you fight fire with water, not with fire. Once again, dad is down. Okay, it's still hot here, but not as hot as it was earlier today. And these leopards are just relaxing. I really don't know if you guys out there have seen action like this behavior. Please send through your comments. I've never seen what we're seeing right here, and for me this is fantastic. So I was saying before about animal behavior, tracking, and ecology. And ecology is a very broad word, and a lot of people get quite sort of shaken when they hear ecology, and they think, oh my word, only ecologists understand ecology. But if you break it down to a human level, what is ecology? Why do we wear jackets? Because the environment we live in is cold. Why do we wear hats? Because the sun in our face burns our head. Why do the leopard have spots? So he can camouflage himself for hunting. It's as simple as that. Why do Impala males have horns? Because they fight for dominance against the females. Why do the females and males have large ears? It's to hear, to defend themselves against predators. So ecology is a very broad term, very easily understood. Don't ever let yourself be daunted by ecology. The wind picked up again, and there's a bit of action as Hosana stands up and is starting to stalk little birds. He's definitely very playful. He's definitely still a youngster. And dad does not care. He's not interested in the little birds. It's a nice visual of him in the light there. Oh, you see the displacement? Well, should I say the aggressive response? Hosana came a little bit close, and instead of doing anything, he just showed a facial expression of teeth baring, mouth wide open, and a little noise coming out of the chest. And that's enough to let the youngster know that he's overstepped his boundary, and he sits down again. if you spend any time with domestic dogs, they do something very similar with puppies. The puppies always want to nibble at their ears and bite them, and they quite often will get a little nip on the bum or on the head or wherever it might be, and they learn that way. They learn not to be naughty. Those are very social animals, and they need to learn these things. I think maybe we move back a bit, let these guys in. Seb, what do you think? We're just going to move back a bit and let these guys come in. Are you guys fine? Are you sure? Okay, no, they're fine. We're in a really good position here. I feel a bit guilty for hogging it. Well, you guys are very fortunate. There's no signal with Noel, so we are going to stay with these leopards as they sit here. And I haven't heard any comments from the audience with regards to if they've seen anything like this before, what their thoughts might be. Crystal, I believe you saw a male leopard sharing a meal with a cub. That definitely happens when they're quite young. When leopards are young, maybe less than 6 months or 8 months, I could be mistaken. But 21 months, this for me is quite unique. But it's still always very, very, very interesting. Yeah, keep them coming, folks. Keep them coming. Leopards in the Sabi Sands are a phenomenon, known throughout the world. If you want to see leopards, this is the place to come. I think I've just proved that on my first drive here, and we are loving the spotted cats. So when we talk about leopards and males and females, you quite often will find the male leopard has got a territory, and depending on the food resource, that territory will have a particular type of size. So if you in an area in the savanna area, you often have a much smaller territory because there's more food. When you go sort of more desert like Namibia areas or Kalahari, leopards have far greater territories purely because the food resource is much less. Okay, folks, there's another vehicle arrived, and I'm sure he would like to get a visual of this, so we're going to back out a bit, try give them a little bit of space. Going to back out, give them some space, and then let's see what happens from there. Enjoy, folks. Give you some space there. Just got to watch this little antenna. I have been warned. Okay, folks, so we're just going to move out. Thank you, everybody, for your kind comments coming through my ear. We're just going to move out, folks. There's another vehicle. They would like to get a view of that. I think we've had a fair share of spotted cats for the afternoon. What they might do further, we'll keep the radio on. Maybe if we have time, we can go back there, but let's let the other guests enjoy themselves for just a few moments and see what else we can see. We're going to go back to the dam, have a look over there, see what else is coming around. Pokemon, I believe your question is, how do splits happen between cubs and their mothers? Is that correct? Well, a mother will have the cubs, and the cubs will reach a certain age where they're weaned and starting to fend for themselves, and then they have to leave. The age could be between 15 and 25 months, depending on the individual, depending on how successful they are. So once they reach a certain maturity, they're able to hunt for themselves, they've learned enough from their mothers to carry on, then it's time for them to go hunt for themselves. So whether you'd call it a split or not, it's basically just a fledging. It's a time of maturity where the competition between the mother and the youngsters becomes a bit much, and where the mother now has to start feeding more than she can capably catch for herself. So that means that she physically can't actually keep up feeding the younger one. The young one has to go and start catching food for itself. I hope that answers your question. Try to find my way back to the dam here. Seb, have I taken a wrong turn? I think let's just carry on here, shall we? Seb's acting as my cameraman and navigator, so forgive us. We will make our way back to the dam. Beautiful lighting. This wind is fantastic, feeling a lot more cooler. The mouth is definitely not as dry as it was after watching Hosana drinking that water, as muddy as it was. Oh, there's a Jacobin cuckoo. I don't know if you're going to get that. They never stick around. And you see that just off 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock just here. Jacobins, I heard my first one of the season yesterday. I think it's a Jacobin. Let's see if he's got stripes on the chest. I can't see his chest. The Jacobin has got a white chest. The Levalant has got a white chest with black streaks. It's hard to see on the neck. That looks like a Levalance cuckoo to me. Levalance, L for Levalance, is quite easy to remember, and maybe that's why he's sticking around. The Jacobin cuckoos are impossible to film, and there he flies. Fantastic. You see that long tail, the black, the white tips, and that characteristic streaked neck. This is an insect eater, folks. This comes all the way from the north down here to feed on insects. Most of your cuckoos are caterpillar specialists. They come down here to feed on the larvae of the larvae of the butterflies, which we also know as caterpillars in their different stages. And they fly a long way, purely to feed and to breed. And the Jacobin cuckoo, the Valence cuckoo, if I'm not mistaken, parasitizes on the Aramark babblers, and they come down here from northern Africa, primarily to feed and to lay their eggs in the nests of other birds, which is a bit cheeky, but there's not many birds that come all the way from the north that are able to breed and feed and then go back again. So cuckoos are able to do that because they don't have to look after the babies. So as I spoke just before with the leopard has to fend and feed the cubs, which is a period of time, can be months, can be a year or two, and then that animal is fledged. Whereas cuckoos, they come down, they feed, they're cheeky, they lay their eggs in the nests of others, no parental care, they can feed, they don't have to provide. So it's really quite a win-win situation for them. So a little bit cheeky, but there's a place in the world for cuckoos. And parasites, have you heard of the term parasitic brooders? Less than 1% of the bird population. So it's essentially 99% of birds don't do that, 1% does. And you've just seen one. Let's carry on. Let's see if we can find this dam. Ladybird, 142 on the list. That is fantastic news. Fantastic news. Keep up the good work. Keep birding. We have got some Waterbuck crossing here. It is just non-stop today, folks. Started off quite slowly with the heat, and as it starts to warm up, or cool down should I say, the animals come out to play. How's your visual there, Seb? We've got more about to cross here. They might cross. Waterbuck, here comes a youngster. Young female, and we're sitting downwind of these guys, folks, so the wind will blow that particular Waterbuck scent right into our noses. You can't get it from home where you're sitting. That's the one disadvantage you have for not being here with us, is you don't get to experience the smells of the bush, and there's nothing quite like the smells of the African bush. I'm not going to tell you a lie and say the Waterbuck smells lovely, but there's a particular musty odor that they give off, and that is derived from a gland on the skin. that very, very thick fur, as you can see there. Can you imagine dipping that in water? It would get very, very wet. And as the name Waterbuck implies, it is an animal that uses the water. They spend a lot of time in and around water, and their escape route, actually, if charged or attacked by a leopard or a lion, would be to run straight into the water. And that gland keeps the fur nice and dry, almost like water off a duck's back, if you've ever seen that before. Otherwise, they would just sink, soggy and sink. We'll just go a little bit further forward. We can a nice little line of them here with their bottoms directly towards us. How's that, Seb? And always, we love talking about ecology. And I think the one characteristic feature the waterbuck has is that little white ring on the bum. Very, very easy to see. And when I was growing up, I was taken to the zoo by, I think, my godmother, I forget. And they explained to me where the ring came from. And forgive me if you've heard this story before, but as a child it stuck with me. And they speak about that the waterbuck was the first animal to be taken onto Noah's Ark. And so the first animal to sit on the newly painted toilet seat, and that has left the imprint of that white ring. So quite a nice child story, but in reality the ecology of the white ring has actually got to do with what we call the follow me signal. If you look at the brown on the back there, they're actually quite invisible from the back apart from that white ring. And why would you want to have a follow me signal on your bum? That's a very interesting point, interesting question. But if you're being chased by a lion, you ideally would like all your friends to be following you so that you're at the front of the line and your friends are at the back. And if you have a line of friends following you, it's very, very easy for you to get away, and hopefully you won't be eaten. So through evolution, they've developed that circle. Ellie, I've got a question about a waterbuck and a bushbuck. What is the difference? Okay, now first of all, waterbucks are far larger, and they've got the ring on the back. Very, very furry, very, very furry. Much larger animals. Yes, the male waterbuck has got horns as well as the male bushbuck, but the size, I would say bushbuck is half the size. I don't have the maths on me right now, but definitely not similar in the fact of the fur. The fur is very shaggy, very thick. The white ring on the back is very diagnostic of waterbuck. And also, you'd never see bushbuck in large groups like this. They are what would you say, not solitary, but pair bonded, where you'd find a male and a female generally together. You wouldn't find large groups. But I'll have a look in the book here, if you just give me a moment. I've borrowed a book from James today, and I'm probably not very good at finding what I'm looking for. There we go. Bushbuck. Almost there, folks. Sorry, bear with me. So you all had a really good look at the waterbuck there, and you noticed the grey and the white ring on the backside, but no spots, no stripes anywhere else. Where the bushbuck, if you look in the top of the picture here, has got stripes on the side and beautiful little spots on the backside there. Someone mentioned earlier about deer. Bushbuck have got a very similar appearance to deer in the spot pattern and these beautiful stripes, and on the back they've got this nice mane of hair. And speaking about this coloration, the waterbuck's coloration is not meant for really blending it in and camouflage. We're once again talking about ecology, whereas the bushbuck has got these beautiful, beautiful stripes over here, these beautiful spots, and this mane of hair on the back, which actually breaks up the outline. I'm just trying to hold it there and look back at the camera at the same time. And so that spot pattern, that camouflage, is called disruptive coloration. And those animals can actually stand dead still in the bush, completely motionless, like our leopard we saw there. That same sort of coloration and disruptive markings which help them to completely blend into the surroundings that they're in. And the name bushbuck, I think that holds its own. And so through that, they can stand very still and avoid predation. So when we talk about ecology, all of these colors, all of these stripes, all of these big ears, these horns, all of these things are adaptations for defense, for protection, for hiding Obviously, if you don't want to be eaten, you want to be the most camouflaged animal in the bush. Bushbuck are definitely one of those. Okay, so the waterbuck have now moved off into the bushes there. I think they're on their way to the dam. So we're going to continue around, see if we can catch the last glimpse. The sun is starting to set. Let's see what else is coming down to the river, the dam. So sorry folks, we're still having a bit of communication or signal issues with Noel. So I'm afraid you're going to have to just hang on with me for a moment longer. Hope that's alright, but we'll make it worth it. If Seb can just help me find the dam. Oh!
Don't throw me off. Oh.
Shelley's asking if there's an animal in the wild I'd like to see, and definitely a shoebull is on the list. That's a bird we find in Africa. It's a large bird, very strange looking bird. Another one would be polar bear. Polar bear would definitely be a bird, excuse me, an animal that I'd love to see. Never ever seen a polar bear in the wild. I've never seen a bear, in fact. And it looks like Seb has gotten me onto the airstrip, folks. So apologies for the navigation, but all this information and navigating is a bit tricky on the first try. Okay, Seb said we'll get to the dam. We just go around the airstrip. So please lock in your seatbelts, fold up your trays, open your window blinds, and make sure your chair is in the upright position. We are about to take off. Lovely, I did that for you and for myself. The wind in my face is fantastic. This is the way to cool down. We spoke earlier about the hippo in the water. Hippo's cooling down in the water. The water actually acts as a cooling agent. It really rubs off against the body, taking the heat off. If you've ever been in a car before, you feel the wind in your face on your body. It also cools you down, but much slower. Water, I think, is about 27% more radiative. So that means it takes off at 27% higher in decreasing your temperature. So you can cool down much quicker in the water than you can in the air. But we'll take what we can right now. Am I going right, Joseph?
Yes.
Shimatsi in Shangaan is to turn right. Not that Seb is speaking Shangaan. He's actually French, and I could probably understand a little bit of his French. But please don't ask me to speak any. Lovely marula trees. Kathy, birds and bird sounds. What is my favorite bird? Well, very small bird. It's about this big, a finch size, used to be known as a Melba finch, now known as a green-winged partilia. It's probably my favorite bird, but it's very hard to put birds into just one category. I've got many raptors I really enjoy. The Rena trogon is probably the most colorful and elusive bird out there. I enjoy all the raptors. I enjoy the smaller colorful birds. The waxbills, which often get overlooked, are very beautiful. And can I do a few bird calls? There are a couple. Kathy, I must admit that my mouth is very dry, and to do bird calls you need a very wet palate. So I will attempt to, when we get to the dam. We'll try and do some bird calls in a moment. When we get to the dam, I'll have a little drink of water and we'll see what we can rustle up for you. I'm definitely hearing a lot of birds in the distance. We're starting to get that evening chorus of the birds starting to settle down in the evening, starting to find their mates, starting to find where they might be roosting, where the nests might be. The preening starting to happen. A lot of birds are going to be at the dam. They're going to be bathing themselves, and then they go off after bathing and they preen and they clean all those mites and ticks and parasites off them that they can, and they do that away from the nest. Now, why would you do that away from the nest? It's pretty much like if you go to the beach and you come back from the beach, you wash the sand off your feet outside the house. You don't climb into your bed with sand on your feet. If you've ever done that, you will know it's not a fun experience. Not a fun experience at all. Straight up here, Seb?
Yes.
I think so. I think we're going straight. Downhill is always good.
Either way is fine.
And here we've got a relative to the bushbuck. We have a Nyala. Bushbuck and Nyala, very similar. I'm just rolling forward a bit because he's going to cross the road. See if Seb can keep him in picture. And there's a nice big Nyala bull. Nice big horns. And you see the fur on the back, the little spots on the backside there. Some very faint stripes along the side. That's aimed at camouflaging him, keeping him very, very hidden from predators. Excuse me, he's just moved on. Let's move a bit forward, see if we can catch him. There he goes. There he goes. Now, can you see how when he walked there, he had to duck his head under the tree? Now, the sexual dimorphism, if you're not familiar with the term sexual dimorphism, that is the male, and next to him now, just past, is the female, and he is quite interested in her. He's licking his lips, but he is chocolate brown, the white mane on his head, on his back, and she is sort of orange brown, and he's got the horns, she has no horns. So for him to walk through this thick bush with those horns is a disadvantage to him. For him to run away from a predator, he has to physically move his head. Just roll forward there for you, Seb. How's that? There he's busy using his horns in what we spoke about this earlier today, about the building up your practice. You know, the young impalas were practicing with each other. This guy is rubbing probably a gland on his head against the branch there, but also they often use their horns as punching bags against these branches. The branches often come off second best, but they really do thrash them around, and they do that in anticipation or preparation of a fight, and they build up their neck muscles. As I said earlier, you can't jump into the ring with Mike Tyson without lifting some weights or throwing a few punches. You need to practice. So he's got the horns, and for him, he's just disappearing there. So for him to run away from predators, he's got to duck that head back, which is quite a disadvantage. But for him to be alive, for him to be for him to be looking after females, he needs to be strong. If he's alive, he's proven that point already. The females don't have the horns, so the females, obviously, they stand there, they hide in the bush. The camouflage, as you spoke about before with the bushbuck, the stripes, the camouflage, they stand there very still with the ears. As you saw with the leopards earlier, the sound of the wind completely disrupted it. The Nyala went crazy. They didn't know where the danger was coming from. So Nyala will stand very still, even the bull will stand still, and once they've been spotted, they'll run off. That is their ecology. So the difference between male and female Nyala, very different from other animals, but we can cover that shortly. Let's keep going. Wonderful. Liz, apparently I like to do behind the lens work. Maybe someone's been on my Facebook page and seen a picture of me behind the camera. I haven't done much filming in my life. My brother's actually the cinematographer in the family. But I've assisted in lots of broadcasts. I've been the first rifle for a lot of people. I've taken people into situations where they can film, and yeah, I've spent a lot of time with the guys doing all the hard work. I get to sit there and enjoy myself, and they get to work. So I think I'm going right here, Seb.
Do you want to show them the sunset, maybe?
We are going to show you the sunset, which is on the left. Let's continue. So what would be my favorite animal to film? Elephants are always something to do, always doing something. Baboons are always doing something. Lions and leopards generally aren't doing too much unless you catch them at the right moment. Baboons are so human-like. You always see a family member in a baboon. When you look, you always see an uncle and a brother, or a little brother. I think he's watching, so he knows what I'm talking about.
Maybe let's go more that way. We're not gonna get it from there.
We're going to go back, Seb.
I want to align this database with it.
Okay, we're going to turn around. Okay, so folks, we are turning around. Thank goodness I'm not filming as well, or we'd be completely lost. So the sounds of the bush, the francolins are starting to call, starting to find their mates. their roosts, where they're going to spend the night. We saw that that crested francolin earlier. Do we want to have a look at the little guy? Is that okay for you, Seb? Okay, as we spoke just before the Nyala, look how perfectly that youngster walks. You see when they put their feet down, the front foot, the back foot steps exactly where the front foot stepped. That is a classification or characteristic of the family, of the Nyala, and even the kudu. Big ears, camouflage, predatory defense, as I said before, is to stand very still. Nyalas are mixed feeders. This one is feeding on, looks like either a forb or some very short grass. And by stepping very quietly, they don't make a noise. Not only do they not give themselves away, but they eliminate the noise that they make while moving so that they can hear what is around them. There's always something lurking around the bushes. If you can imagine, we saw 2 leopards together in a very small area. Can you imagine what else is lurking around here? These animals are always very, very cautious, always alert. Living in the moment. Living in the moment is what we should be doing ourselves all the time. And at this moment, we're going to continue to try and get you the beautiful sunset, because the sun waits for no one. Okay, folks, so unfortunately Noelle will not be with us again this afternoon. She has had to head back for some technical issue. I think maybe the gremlins are just expecting me to give you more information and more time. So I'm having to work hard to keep you entertained, but this is great. I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. I hope you are too. We're just going into a little drainage here, folks. We might lose you for a moment. So just hold on. Even though you are not in the vehicle, hold on. And up the other side. Hold on, Seb. These beautiful drainage lines, this is the habitat for the Nyala. They like it nice and thick. There's grass, there's vegetation. It's where they hide, where they camouflage themselves. So from I didn't do it, a question about what is my favorite part about guiding. There's a very good question. I haven't been guiding for the last 3 years. I've been training guides, so it's nice to be back in the hot seat. I love being in the bush. Being in the bush, the smell, the sounds. I'm about to show you something else that's an African beauty. I'll continue with that now as Seb just lines you up with what Mother Nature has created and what allows life to go on this planet. Beautiful orb in the sky. My favorite part of guiding is definitely the animal behavior. But at moments like this, all you really want to do is just be quiet and sit. And I like the silence in the bush. I like being silent in the bush. I like walking. I like being on foot. I like introducing people to the connectivity, to the connection. I think most people, when they come to Africa, don't understand where they're going to the first time. And then once they've been here the first time, they know that this is where they're from. They feel that connection. And I like, always when I have guests, I will ask them in the beginning what their expectations are and how they're feeling. And then at the end, I'll always ask them how that changed or what changed within them. And often on a walk, a silent walk, you'll make someone sit down right here with a view like that and allow them to just contemplate and to think outside of the world they normally live in, to think in the present moment, to listen to the sounds around, to feel the African bush and the connection, a place where I think everybody can feel at home. Absolutely beautiful. So we are back on the dam wall now. Hippos are making a bit of noise. It's maybe still a bit too early for them to come out of the water, but you can hear them making some noise, the typical flop noise of their mouth as they dip it under the water. There's some defecation, there's going to be some yawning soon. The birds are all around us, some collared Pratt and Coles flying here, which, folks, interestingly enough, talking about bird lists, is my number 600 in South Africa, which is fantastic for me. Collared Pratt and Cole is a bird I've never seen before, always wanted to see. That's now. Okay, so I remember I need to do a bird call or two. I just remembered my mouth is still quite dry, so now I'm on the wall. Just have a little drink of water. I'm on the spot. I need to think of a bird call. I am thinking deeply. It's quite funny. I've never been asked to do a bird call live on camera, so I'll do my best. And I'm racking my brains for a very interesting bird call. Seb is laughing with me, but maybe someone. Okay, what can we do, Seb? I'm on the spot now. I'm on the spot. Okay, we can hear a pearl-spotted owlet is coming through from Kirsten. That's not the nicest bird call in the world, but what could?
Fish eagle?
That's a terrible fish eagle, Seb. That was a terrible fish eagle. Folks, I'm going to have to practice my bird calls. I do have them. They are in my head, but my head is suddenly swarmed with so many other things. The sunset, the bird calling on the right, a woodlands kingfisher coming in from the desk. Thanks, Kirsten, for putting me on the spot there. It's my attempt at a Deirdre's cuckoo, which is not my best effort. I think not only is my mouth dry, but my lips are a little bit parched. What have we got over there? What is that? Just some waterbuck grazing on the other side of the dam. As the sun sets, Prance and coals are coming down. The Egyptian geese, definitely not going to mimic them. They are a horrible sound. The weavers, the buffalo weavers, are nesting all over the dam. Here we have a hippo. Looks like she, hard to tell from here, looks like a young female. Could be a young male, but tempting to come out. But it's a bit of an island there, I think. Where are you going to go? Yes, can you see just in front of it there is a cutest of little babies. The mother's almost just nudging it there. There it is. How cute is that? Not the most attractive of animals, the hippo, but the baby nonetheless is extremely cute. And it looks like it's swimming. Young hippos actually can swim to an extent. The mothers and the adults themselves don't really swim when they move. They run along the bottom. As you saw, she was standing a moment ago, and now she's just dropped down into the dam again. There's a nice wind blowing, but maybe it's still a little bit too hot there. She's still thinking about it, but I doubt the female and her calf would be the first ones out the water. The calf is very susceptible to lions and to predators when they're out, but maybe she's hungry. Maybe she's trying to help it out. It's interesting to watch. Maybe she's going to give her a little nudge. There we go, look at that. Now, if that's not the cutest thing you've ever seen, and that is brand new, that's only a month old, if I could be mistaken, but that is a very, very young hippo. Now, when we talk about temperature and cooling, then the youngsters are much smaller and they cool much quicker. So if they're in the water can actually be quite cold. And when I was in Malawi last year, there was a big question that came up about why are the hippos out the water all the time. No one had ever seen hippos out the water. In these pans and dams that you find here in the Sabi sands, the water's not moving. It's stagnant water that gets heated by the sun. And so it's actually relatively warm in comparison, whereas the Lwande River is moving, and the water temperature is actually very cold in comparison if you spend hours in the water. And in Malawi, the hippos tend to spend a lot of their time out of the water, purely because, as I said before, water's got a 21% increase in temperature reduction. So from Tristan, That actually is my younger brother, who I was mentioning before. He's online watching now. He wishes he was a hippo. I will be seeing him in a couple of weeks, so I will gladly introduce you to the swimming pool, as we have done before, Tristan, but I won't try to drown you this time. So folks, as we watch the sun set, the Deirdre's cuckoo's calling in the background, the hippos getting ready to emerge from the water in this beautiful African wilderness, I'm going to link with Noelle. She's managed to sort out some technical issues. She's on foot this time, and she'll see you in just a moment.
Hello everyone, Steve, thank you so much for carrying on the show while we had our crazy gremlins. As you can see, we've got a beautiful last little look at the sunset as it moves away, and then we've got something really amazing just this side. We've got a nice little harem of zebra as well as a little herd of impalas that has come onto the open area. They're going to spend the night here. They don't want to be in an area that is too thick during the night. It will be too hard for them to protect themselves. Remember that they have trouble hearing trouble seeing at night, and they prefer their hearing, their sense of smell. So this little bit of open gives them quite a nice advantage to a point. And then the zebras and the impala, as well as some wildebeest, who I see traveling slowly up, we'll get another view of them just now, are going to sort of group together. The more eyes, the more ears, better chance of survival. Now they can see us. Zebras right now still have good eyesight. They're fully aware that we're here. And there comes our wildebeest. One of them. Maybe he's confused. Maybe he thinks he's also a zebra. You never know with wildebeest. And he's staring now because the zebra is staring. Shame, poor guy. But notice the difference in the body. I mean, that wildebeest, very, very, very broad shoulders, head positioned down, sloping back. He's really made for endurance. He's made to run and run and run. He's a very hardy animal. Now, the zebras are hardy in a different way. Very stout, thick legs, nice, thick necks, and a stout body. Again, for a bit of endurance, but not as much as that sloping back. The hyena and the wildebeest are very similar with that sloping back and the amount of muscles that go into that there. You can hear the woodland kingfisher flying past us. In the background there. Now I think let's meander a little bit around one of these trees over here and see if we can get a bit of a different view with our zebras, since they already know that we're here. I also want to just give you, before it's too dark, just a bit of an up-close look at the bark of this tree over here. And it'll also give time for the larger herd of wildebeest to hopefully meander into view so that we can show them to you. So what you'll notice, I know we talk a lot about marula trees, but we have quite a few that are present on the property, and they really are a staple of any sort of African safaris, these beautiful marula trees, and they're very sweet tasting, the fruits for the elephants. But notice what they've done to the bark of this tree. So not recently, but a while back, they've come and sort of taken their tusk and ripped it up the side of the tree to get the bark off, and then ripped the bark off. Now, the bark hasn't been taken off all the way around the tree, so the tree is still alive. This would be like us having quite a large wound that's been taken off, but the rest of us are okay. So the tree is still able to survive. If they had taken the bark all the way off, then the tree would pass away, would die. You can see the bark hanging here. And when the elephants are after this bark, they're after that sweet taste, as well as the nutrients that are flowing through it. So for us, it would be difficult to think of eating bark, but for them, it's a very tasty delight. Now, we still have our zebra and wildebeest in the background here. And now coming closer and closer together. There's a little bit of a call that's definitely for us from the wildebeest. He's just realized that we're here. So we'll stay where we are. The rest of the herd, I can just barely see them meandering over the horizon. I think in about another 30 seconds or so, we'll get a better view of them. And as he's busy making that, it's not a full-on alarm call, but it's just, hey, listen, something's going on. So as we stand with our human form, it's very different for them. So everything that they're used to walks on 4 legs, we walk on 2 legs. The other thing that we have that is different from a lot of the prey species that are around here is our eyes are predator eyes. They're in front as opposed to being on the side of the head. So our whole body makeup is a bit unusual for them. And then especially as we're losing a little bit of light and they're having a harder time to see, they would rather sort of alarm the wildebeest than not. But now notice he's with the zebra, and the zebras have also seen us, and the zebras have done nothing. They've just watched. They felt no need to alarm. They understand our body shape a little bit better. They're also, I would say, a little bit more secure in their environment. Because if they're not, they would definitely be saying something. Now, my very good friend Steve, yes, Steve-O, you're doing great. I'm really proud of you today. And that leopard sighting was absolutely incredible. I'm a little bit jealous. Let's head back over to him. I believe he has a very large bird he would like to show you.
I hadn't stopped talking for about half an hour, eh?
Yeah, it was probably even more. Like, I think because we were live for like probably 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then they cut, remember?
I'm so sorry, something happened. A little gremlin's now attacking Steve after all of that hard work that he did. We're still here with our zebra and our wildebeest, and it's interesting with that small little alarm call. There it goes again. Yes, I see you, sir. A small little snort that he's doing. The rest of the herd, instead of coming straight over the top of this open area, has sort of meandered down around the side, and they're probably just waiting until they get view of him. Now, also the wind is blowing from behind me, so they can definitely smell that I'm here. They know that I'm not a predator, but again, because it's starting to get darker, they would rather be more aware and more in tune with their surroundings as they're losing one sense than not pay attention at all. And then also, to be fair, the other night when we were coming back from game drive about 5 minutes after we wrapped, I mean, Shadow was just down here. So it's not like nothing can be here. And then again, it's getting cooler. The predators are going to start moving more. It was really great that Hosana and Tingana moved earlier in the afternoon, even though it was so hot, and had that great interaction in the heat. VM and I were busy trying to see if Tundi was out. A little bit of squirrel action, but we couldn't really pick up on more than that. It does look like we got Mvula's tracks towards Biffle's hook cut line, sort of Aubrey's and Blela. But Steve's gremlins have gone off, so let's head back to him and see what he has to share with us.
We're still here at the waterhole, folks. The sun is nearly set. Beautiful colours in the sky. And the African fish eagle surveys its territory over the dam. We watched it eating a fish earlier. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get you to see that. But now with a full belly and a long night ahead, the fish eagle will sit there perched in the tree. Being a diurnal bird, daytime bird, won't be active at night. Will spend the evening possibly just there in the tree to awaken in the morning to continue the day as before. Devi, what nocturnal animal would I most like to see? I have seen aardvark. I really enjoy seeing aardvark. There's a fantastic animal to see. I've never seen an aardwolf though. That's an animal I'm still waiting to see. An animal that's on my bucket list. I've seen lots of leopards, lots of lions. My favorite animal is the honey badger, which is actually a crepuscular animal, meaning it's active at dusk and dawn, but is often also active at night. For me, very, very special animal. And then possibly a striped polecat. I believe that is also a nocturnal animal, and never seen one of them. So aardwolf and striped polecat definitely on the list to see. And I think we're going to be just enjoying the sounds. Listen to the night, the Egyptian geese, the guinea fowl, the crescent moon behind us. It was new moon a few days ago. There we have the guinea fowl, bushveld chicken as some people like to call it, walking along, plucking the ground. Very, very important buffer species. If anybody understands what a buffer species is, we saw the impala before. The impala form a very important food for most of your animals, most of your predators. Having a lot of impala alleviates the pressure on your more rare and endangered animals. And when times are tough and when droughts kick in, funny enough, the guinea fowl populations actually increase, and with that increase, the other animals who are actually decreasing because of the severe drought, lions, leopards, caracal, all those sort of animals will actually get by on feeding on guinea fowl. So very, very important buffer species, definitely for filling in that meat complement when your more common animals start to fade when the droughts are very, very severe. Again, they are also the agricultures of the bush. They are walking around, they are pecking on seeds, they are defecating, they are scratching the ground for seeds, for vegetation. They love to feed on little insects or worms they might find. They'll definitely scratch open elephant dung and droppings, just like the francolins and spurfowls will do. And they form a very important element of the ecosystem. So even though we see lots of them, people might not pay them a lot of heed. We hear the hippos in the background. It's nearly time for the hippos to emerge. They are starting to get a bit anxious over there. If we can just cut across to the right hand side. Just going to go a little bit forward. We've got two youngsters just busy playing in the water there. I hope you can get that. Sorry, Seb. And as you can see, what I said before, they're not swimming. They're actually standing. They're standing there. So when they want to get cool, they just tuck in their knees and down they go. Not very good swimmers, yet very aquatic. And that's their ecology. The problem with hippos being, if there's no water, they will not survive. They need to feed on a much smaller amount of food a day than rhino do for the equivalent weight. But on that note, we're going to be cutting over to Noelle. She's going to be saying farewell from her side, and from our side, have a good evening. Thank you.
So thank you everyone from myself, VM, and Steve, and Seb, and Brent, and Jamie, and Namara, and to this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful afternoon we had in the bushveld of South Africa and up in Kenya. It's really been a great day. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock our time, we will be out and about, and we will see you then. Enjoy your wonderful day or night.